All praises, all praises, all praises to the heavenly, holy, almighty creator of infinity, eternity, the universe, and all there is. This is Revelations.Unveiled. Detroit. Hello, family. We're back together again so that we can give a critical examination of some of the carnal developments through our spiritual lens of the eye and hear and the ear as we use our Holy Spirit of the Word to visualize and interpret everyday common current events. And so today we will be reviewing a practice that is exercised by a police department, but we do surmise that it is part of a larger practice of rituals, shall we say, a ritual practice that has come to light that most commonly or most probably is practiced nationwide on various levels. And so if we start with the primary understanding that the policing forces of the country of America started out as slave patrolling and slave catching institutions where runaway slaves will be hunted with a gallery or a mob of men and vicious dogs, and sought and retrieved and sometimes maimed and disfigured and in worst cases killed for the retrieval of their bodies as property back to the slave owner. So that is the spirit of the policing forces and institutions of America. Also, as a secondary primary thought, these policing benevolent unions and agencies and brotherhoods, they are Masonic organizations, extensions of the branches of Freemasonry. So these rituals that we will go over this evening could be just one of the steps or one of the degrees that these police receive throughout their careers. And then maybe it'll give us some even more general understanding as to how they can commit these actions and serve minimal to no if there even is punishment. So we will be reviewing an article from the Open Vallejo newspaper entitled Vallejo Police Bend Badges to Mark Fatal Shootings. And we began. They call it the Badge of Honor. For a generation, a secretive clique within the Vallejo Police Department has commemorated fatal shootings with beers, backyard barbecues, and by bending the points of their badges each time they kill in the line of duty. An investigation opened by Open Vallejo has found the custom was so exclusive, some officers involved in fatal shootings were never told of its existence. But senior level enforcement and government officials say everything changed when a police captain tried to end the practice following the fatal shooting of a 20-year-old Willie McCoy in February of 2019. Over the next 6 months, the tradition became known at the highest levels of Vallejo city government and the district attorney's office. All right, family. So now, as someone has spoken out about this satanic rituals of bending your badge as an identifier after a police-involved fatal shooting, it is not a secret. So now it's on the table. We slide up and we get ready to dine on this wickedness. So let's see how expansive this buffet gets. The captain who pushed for an investigation, John Whitney, would soon be out of a job. A former SWAT team commander with 2 master's degrees, Whitney says he was forced out of the department after raising concerns about the badge-bending tradition and other misconduct. He filed a retaliation claim against the city of Vallejo in March. The community we serve will lose faith in us, Whitney told Open Vallejo. This practice needs to end. At the time of Whitney's firing, nearly 40% of officers on the force had been in at least one shooting, Open Vallejo research shows. More than 1/3 of those had participated in 2 or more shootings. The department employs about 100 sworn personnel. This article is based on interviews with more than 20 current and former government officials, as well as public employment data, post-shooting investigative findings, court and other public records, archived news accounts, and hundreds of photographs taken before and after fatal police shootings. Many of those interviewed spoke on condition of anonymity to describe sensitive discussions between and within their agencies. Several expressed significant concerns about retaliation. Open Vallejo reached out individually to each officer named in the story, most of whom either declined to comment or did not respond. All right, so now the feelers are going out to substantiate the practice, and now those who have dwelled and operated in the darkness and evil are realizing that there is a light shining on some of this activity. So let's see how that develops. Of the 51 current and former Vallejo police officers who have been involved in fatal shootings since 2000, at least 14 had their badges bent by a colleague afterward. Sources familiar with the tradition confirmed. One source told Open Vallejo the number could be much higher. At least 7 officers' badges have multiple bends, according to officers who have seen them and photographs obtained by Open Vallejo. They belong to some of the department's most prolific shooters, including Sean Kinney, Joe McCarthy, and Steve Darden, a member of Vallejo's command staff who was put in charge of the city's hostage negotiations team after being promoted to lieutenant in February. Together, these men account for nearly 1/3 of the department's 30 fatal shootings of the past 2 decades. My badge was never bent. That's a lie, Darden said when reached by phone Tuesday, referring questions to the department's public information officer. Kinney and McCarthy declined to comment. In 2003, then Police Chief Robert Nesciolini replaced the department's brass badges with plain sterling silver 7-point stars like those worn by Oakland Police, his former agency. The change may have enabled Vallejo's ritual, as the softer metal is easier to bend. In addition, Vallejo officers typically wear work uniforms bearing an embroidered patch in the course of their normal duties. The subtlety and precision with which Vallejo silver badges can be bent and the relative rarity of seeing one have helped shield the badge of honor from scrutiny. Nicholini denied having knowledge of the practice and told Open Vallejo he would never permit unauthorized modifications of badges. I believe this is a figment of someone's imagination, he wrote via email. Now, right there, family, everyone can have figments of imagination. But then to describe a defined, distinctive practice and then have photographs of the evidence is not imagination. That's a deflective statement. Vallejo Mayor Bob Sampayan, a retired police sergeant himself, said he saw bent badges during Nicholini's tenure. There's that light shining again on statements and activities, family. When I was on the police force, I did notice that there were a couple of officers that had bent badge tips, he told Open Vallejo. I had no idea what happened. Nobody said anything back then. So now we have the ritual, we have someone identifying and speaking out about it, a collection of evidence, and a credible substantiation from a former officer and current mayor himself. But Sampayan has since become aware of the meaning behind the department's badge bending ritual, which he confirmed to this publication. And although Sampayan said city manager Greg Nyhoff had been informed of the custom, Nyhoff denied knowledge through his deputy. Definitely they would deny any knowledge of such wickedness. We don't have any information about a current practice by our officers related to badges, Assistant City Manager Ann Cardwell wrote on behalf of Nyhoff. We take any claims of misconduct seriously and will follow up on the appropriate investigatory measures, as well as take appropriate actions based on information provided. Earlier this month, Attorney General Xavier Becerra announced an expansive review of the department's policies, practices, and procedures. Becerra added a separate criminal probe on July 17 after officers destroyed key evidence in the killing of 22-year-old Sean Monterosa last month. Nicholini's son, Michael, a lieutenant who heads Vallejo's police union, is on leave from the department over his alleged role in the evidence destruction. All right, family, so we have more evidence of wicked, corrupt activity in the darkness now coming to light. Intervention by the Attorney General comes amid a cascade of troubling revelations over the culture within the department, whose roughly 100 officers kill more people per capita, than all but two other cities in the state of California, a 2019 investigation by NBC Bay Area found. Current and former employees describe a department where bullies thrive. Whistleblowers are dealt with harshly, and the pressure to shoot and kill civilians is strong. Some days, I feel like I work with a bunch of thugs who take pleasure in the hurting of people, a current member of the department told Open Vallejo, on condition they are not to be named. So family, when the statement is made, there are good cops and the statement, it only takes one bad apple to spoil the bunch. One cop can commit heinous crimes against the badge, against the municipality, and against the people. And because of the blue wall of silence and their pledge of their brotherhoods and understanding that these are Masonic organizations and they are bound by oaths of death never to divulge the secrets or never to go against their brother, the investigations and the activities of quote-unquote good cops never manifest due to this organization, club, clique, this barrier of enforcement in society. So it must be protected at any and all cost. There are no good police. While reporting this story, Open Vallejo received a series of threatening emails from an anonymous account using the name Tariq Aziz. Law enforcement sources believe the author is a high-ranking Vallejo official with knowledge of the badge-bending tradition. This is consistent with Open Vallejo's analysis of the emails and other evidence. After several failed attempts to get a response, the author of the emails addressed the subject of this story directly. The cops who shoot someone bend the badges by the tab, he wrote on April 5. Kind of like a notch on the bedpost. It's an indicator to each other how many hoodlums they shot. They think it's funny. Ask Whitney, the message continued. He knows all this stuff. It's why he is gone. So family, an anonymous source of questionable credibility is now making another substantiation. Sources say not every officer who kills is invited to participate in the Badge of Honor ritual. The vetting process is stringent, if straightforward. Those who kill meet its first requirement. Those who can be trusted not to talk fulfill the second. For those invited into the group, a fatal shooting, their own or a colleague's, is often followed by a barbecue or other celebration, according to current and former police department employees. The actual bending of the badges occurs there or at roll call and official law enforcement briefing that takes place at the beginning or end of a shift. So, at some point in time, there was a public exhibition of this practice, family, at a police roll call, the beginning and ending of the shift, where all of the officers collect and are given their orders for the shift. Photographs indicate the first bend is often applied at the 4 o'clock point of a new initiate's badge. The sweep of Vallejo's badge bending tradition might never have come to light but for the fatal shooting of Willie McCoy, a 20-year-old musician and community college student who fell asleep behind the wheel of his Mercedes while waiting in a Taco Bell drive-thru on February 9, 2019. When honking cars failed to rouse McCoy, a restaurant employee called 911 seeking help. He's unresponsive, the employee explained to the dispatcher. I've already had people try to knock on the window. I have no idea what's going on. Officers were dispatched to conduct a wellness check. Officer Anthony Romero Cano was the first to the scene, followed seconds later by Officer Jordan Patzer. standing inches from the car, their Glock 17 pistols pointed at McCoy. They noted a gun in his lap. Romero Cano suggested breaking the driver's side window and pulling McCoy out. "No, just wait here until we get more people," Patzer responded, a second-generation Vallejo police officer. Patton's father, Jeremy, killed 2 men and left another critically injured during his 6-year career with the department. Current and former colleagues say at least one point the elder Patzer's badge is bent. Officer Mark Thompson soon arrived. Thompson shot a man who survived in 2006. The next year, he tased another man to death. He has at least one bend in his badge, according to 2 sources familiar with the matter. Thompson and Patzer did not respond to requests for comment. "He's got a gun on his lap," Romero Cano told him. "The magazines half out, so he's only got one shot if he shoots." The officers discussed pulling McCoy out of the car. "I didn't even want to give him a chance," Romero Cano said. "If he reaches for it, you know what to do," Thompson replied before trying the locked driver's side door. Officer Colin Eaton arrived and took up a position near the front of McCoy's car. Officers shone their weapon-mounted flashlights into the vehicle for the next 2 minutes before McCoy, who appeared to be asleep or nearly so, reached up with his right hand and scratched his left shoulder. Patzer, Thompson, Romero Cano, and Eaton began yelling commands. At that moment, Officer Brian Glick pulled his police SUV in front of McCoy's car, stepped out, and drew his weapon. Seconds later, the officers fired 54 rounds at McCoy. A 6th officer, Ryan McMahon, arrived on the scene just as McCoy started to stir. He ran up behind Glick and fired one .45 caliber round toward the car. For this, McMahon would collect his second bend in less than a year, law enforcement sources told Open Vallejo. McMahon collected his first bend, sources say, for killing Ronell Foster after a brief foot chase on the night of February 13, 2018. McMahon told investigators he stopped Foster, who had been riding his bicycle without a light in Vallejo's quiet downtown, to educate him about traffic safety. Foster rode away, fell off his bike and ran. McMahon chased Foster into the courtyard of a church on Carolina Street, where he struck Foster repeatedly with his duty flashlight. Foster broke free, turned, and tried to get away. McMahon fired 7 rounds, striking Foster in the back and the back of his head. Asked by investigators how far away Foster was when shot, McMahon replied, point blank, a 33-year-old father of 2 young children. Foster did not have a weapon. McMahon denied his badges bent through his attorney, Justin Buffington. Asked whether McMahon's badge had been bent during the first 6 months of 2019, Buffington replied, "Not that I ever saw." Krishna Abrams, who was elected district attorney in 2014, cleared McMahon of wrongdoing in January. Her office denied knowledge of the badge bending. But now, family, we see how you get to the elevated degrees of the lodge, that which is of the district attorneys and and the city attorney's office, all the way up. So depending on your pedigree or your job description or your education is how you ascend within these Masonic organizations and auxiliary groups and associations. We don't have any credible evidence of that, Solano County Chief Deputy District Attorney Paul Sequeira told Open Vallejo. We don't respond to rumors. No one brought that to us. But Abrams participated in meetings where the custom was discussed months before clearing McMahon, according to two high-ranking law enforcement officials who worked at different agencies. The Foster and McCoy shootings troubled some members of the department. They believed that if officers had taken cover and used time and distance to their advantage, McCoy could have been taken safely into custody. One police official who spoke with Open Vallejo on condition of anonymity said the incident resembled an execution. On March 9, 2019, Vallejo released body camera footage of McCoy's killing in response to a public records request by this publication. It was only the second time video of a Vallejo police shooting had ever been publicly disclosed. The officers' actions captured in the video footage garnered worldwide condemnation as pressure mounted from within and outside the department. Chief Andrew Bideau told Whitney, the captain who would soon become a whistleblower, to address the badge bending at a meeting with command staff. When it came time to discuss the badges, Bideau stood up, led civilian staff out of the room, and did not return, Whitney said. Whitney told Open Vallejo that he addressed the badge bending with those in attendance, which included all officers above the rank of corporal. Whitney then ordered the officers to inspect their subordinate officers and collect any bent badges. 10 came back within the first hour and were placed in a small cardboard box in the office of Bideau's executive assistant. But Bideau had plans to retire and rejoin the city as interim chief, effectively doubling his pay at $40,000 a month. Whitney said Bideau told him that the cost of repairing so many badges could raise suspicion within the city's finance department and cause him to lose the interim position. The chief ordered the badges returned to the officers, who were instructed to fix them. Oh, family, so we see how some double dealing and some double dipping is occurring within the various agencies of this city. You go from the chief to the interim chief. You get a big bump in pay so as not to rock the boat or cause any extra eyes to look upon some of this scurrilous activity. You just return things to the officers with the mandate to get it fixed and get it fixed. But those plans to serve as interim chief fell short after it was found to violate California's retirement rules. Former Fairfield Police Chief Joe Aleo was appointed as interim chief. Bideau now works for PG&E, and that's an electric company out in California. Whitney said he then brought his concerns about the badges to Vallejo City Manager Greg Nyhoff, Mayor Bob Sampayan, and then City Attorney Claudia Quintana in several private meetings in April 2019. Quintana denied knowing about the bit badges. Interim Chief Aleo also knew about the badge bending, Sampayan said. 2 senior government officials independently confirmed that Alio was briefed while serving as interim chief in 2019. Vallejo recently brought Alio back to serve as interim assistant police chief. But the only person disciplined over the scandal was Whitney. He was fired in August of last year after nearly 20 years with the department. The department opened an internal affairs investigation into allegations that he improperly handled information. And though he was cleared of those allegations, he was terminated for removing family photographs and other personal data from his work phone during the investigation, according to a claim he filed with the city on March 24, a first step before filing a lawsuit. In the claim, Whitney contends he was fired in retaliation for speaking up about the department's culture of impunity. In an undated letter attached as an exhibit to Whitney's claim, Sampayan wrote, "Frankly, I believe that because John spoke out about a negative culture on the Vallejo Police Department, his reputation was soiled by those who did not want any dirty laundry aired." Sampayan elaborated in a phone call Tuesday. As a retired police sergeant, a police officer for 4 decades, I find it just absolutely offensive, the mayor said. It shows absolutely no respect for the uniform, for the community you were sworn to protect. All right, family. So now, as we spiritually examine some of the carnal activities of the forces that we trust to serve and protect our communities, we are seeing the reckless disregard for life by these agencies, which have sparked national and international protest against the wickedness that is continuing to be demonstrated against, most specifically and in terms of us, the humble Hebrews of the 12 tribes of the house of Israel. We see that these agencies are covers. They are the wicked, gnarled, and hairy fingers of Satan used in manipulation of so-called law and order. And so, instead of the slogan of protect and serve, we surmise as the Hebrews with the spiritually unveiling eye and ear that they serve and protect through their Freemasonic practices, obligations, and oaths, the activities and directives of Satan. And so, family, as these stories of the like become available, we will continue to expand intellectually and spiritually on the carnal activities of our current captivity. And until we are together again, I love you. I love you. I love you. This is Revelations.Unveiled. Detroit.